We love a lot of things about Disney movies, and one of those things is the music. Most of us could probably finish the lyric of most Disney songs, but I think one of the biggest things that makes Disney movies awesome are the happy endings. I mean, they all live happily ever after. But what if Disney changed their approach? They let the stories end horribly. What if Frozen ended with Elsa and Anna dying of frostbite? Not as easy to let it go. But if this happened, we would have a lot of traumatized kids everywhere in this world. The reason I bring it up is because sometimes middle school and high school can feel like a movie gone wrong. You start out thinking this is going to be an exciting new year, then you realize that some things are great and some things aren't. You realize that school, like life, is not like a Disney movie. There are a lot of reasons that could contribute to this. One of them is classes. There may be one you just can't figure out, or you feel like you're drowning in the expectations. Maybe it's sports, theater, or band for you. You don't get the playing time or make the team. You don't get the callback or the lead role, or you don't make first chair like you thought you should. And then there's always dating. Either it feels like you'll never go out with anyone, or you're stuck in a bad relationship, or you may have just been dumped and you thought that relationship was going to go somewhere. But chances are that at some point in the past few years, something has happened in your life to make you think that your story is over. Okay, maybe that's a little dramatic. This is the more common phrase that people use. I'm done. And along with this statement comes some pretty strong emotions like despair, defeat, hopelessness, frustration, and embarrassment. So what do you do when you feel these things? When you feel like the story is over? Is there a way out, a way past these emotions? And if a situation is over and you're already done, what else can you do? And what does God even have to do with it at that point? I want us to take a look at one of the most powerful times in the Bible. It's a time when the story ended badly. Through it, I think you can learn something that will help you in your story and help you see God differently when you feel like your story is over. What we're going to look at centers around some of Jesus's best friends. You may know this, but Jesus had a crew of guys that he lived with during his adult years, 12 to be exact. They're traditionally called the 12 disciples. They were also simply called his friends. How cool would it be if you were one of those 12? You had a front row seat to see Jesus take the world by storm. You would have been there when he started doing miracles. And not like magic tricks that entertain people, but real miracles that changed people's lives. He healed people who were crippled and blind. He fed thousands of people with only a few loaves of bread and some fish. He walked on water. He even raised the dead people to come back to life. And on top of that, Jesus told his crew what he was going to accomplish while he was here. He made it clear that he wasn't just some great teacher or church leader. He was the Savior they were waiting on to be sent from God. It was the most important thing that could happen in history, and they were a part of it. They probably couldn't believe that they were in the inner circle of the Messiah. It was going to be legendary, life-changing, and mind-blowing, and then Jesus was executed and the story was over, the end. Talk about a plot twist. The legendary story was over, and you know what they did? They locked themselves in a room and didn't come out. No, really, check this out. On the evening of that first day of the week, when the disciples were together with the doors locked for fear of the Jewish leaders, they gave up and ran home. Have you ever been there? I know I have. Like when something bad happened and you literally locked yourself in your room, or you did something so embarrassing that when you came home from school, you begged your parents to let you transfer to a different school. That's how we feel when our story goes drastically wrong. And that's how Jesus' disciples felt too. They were locked in a room, afraid and sad. But the reason this story is so famous is not because of what they did. The story is famous because of what God did. Check this out. Jesus came and stood among them and said, "Peace be with you." Wait, what? Jesus was dead, like really dead, buried in a tomb, and then bam, he's in a room with his friends. Minds blown. And can you imagine the crazy celebration that must have followed? In fact, John tells us that's exactly what happened. After he said this, he showed them his hands and side. The disciples were overjoyed when they saw the Lord. Overjoyed. In other words, they went bananas. Why? Because the story that was over was no longer over. In the moment they were sure it was all done, Jesus showed up to say, "No, it isn't. We're just getting started." Jesus showed up to show them that he was really the Son of God and the Savior of the world. That he had come not just to defeat Israel's enemy, but also the biggest enemy for all of us, death. The tomb was empty, not because Jesus' body was stolen, but because he wasn't dead any longer. The story wasn't over anymore. And here's what you need to know. This isn't just a story about them. It's a story about you. Because the same God who wasn't done with this story isn't done with yours either. No matter how bad, sad, embarrassing, or ruined your story feels, it's not over. Why? Because Jesus rose from the dead. And he didn't just do it for himself, he did it for you, so that he could give every broken story in your life a new ending. Because of Jesus, what's broken can be fixed. What's hurt can be healed. What's lost can be restored. What's ruined can be redeemed. And what's dead can come back to life. And that's true for you too. Because of Jesus, your story isn't over. That's why Easter is such an amazing time of good news. Because at Easter, Jesus proclaimed that all stories, even the darkest ones, are not over yet. So the question I have for you is simple. In what part of your life do you have the door locked? Because you think your story is over. Which situations in your life feel done? Now here's the challenge. In those situations, invite Jesus in. Ask for his help. Unlock the door. And the key is trust. When you unlock the door, you're trusting that however God chooses to get involved, he has your best interest in mind. You're trusting that he sees your story and knows what to do with the next chapter. You're trusting that he could change everything, even if he chooses not to. He cares about your story, and it doesn't mean it will magically get better. Sometimes bad circumstances draw us closer to God. Because of Jesus, your story is not done. Just invite him in. What do you have to lose? If he rose from the dead, what might he be able to do in your situation?